bank, every financial institution, every large company wanted to build things internally.
Mm-hmm.
And it took them a while to understand that they're not tech companies.
Right.
That building an application is actually a lot harder than what it looks like. I mean, I was just using, I was at Disneyland the other day and they developed their own app, and I can tell they developed their own app. It's funny because we as technologists, we think about this thing, this is actually not that complex, but it's just one thing that the market has learned is that building applications, front-end user experiences, it's almost, you can't just outsource that. You have to insource. It's really challenging to outsource. And you can tell when a company's outsourced because it just doesn't work. It's really challenging to iterate and adopt the model and adopt the app. So it took big companies about a decade to learn that. And when they learned that, it was like, oh, well, we can either stay behind or we can just collaborate. And you see that huge shift happening maybe started last year.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. And my experience with the banking industry is that the IT systems are mostly legacy based and they aren't really built for expansion. So they'd have to do something different in order to stay relevant in our app based society now. So let's talk about your shift though. When did you take on venture capital for the first time?
It's interesting. We took it on for the first time when we were accepted at Y Combinator in 2013.
Mm-hmm. And was that scary or exciting? How did you feel about it?
It was a relief. It was either get funding or die. So it's like being thrown a life preserver if you were drowning in the middle of the ocean. So that's literally how it felt. But being accepted by Y Combinator was also, like being accepted at Wharton or Harvard. It's like you were accepted at the top institution, and you immediately were going to be surrounded by people who are the best at what they do.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a huge learning curve for us, but it was really godsend because it really instilled in us a particular set of kind of values that's really allowed us to get to this level 5 years later.
Mm-hmm. So we haven't really talked about Y Combinator on this show at all. Can you, for our listeners who haven't heard of that, what is Y Combinator and what does it do for entrepreneurs?
Okay, fantastic. So Y Combinator is an organization in San Francisco that, in essence, incubated the incubator.
Okay.
So when you hear about incubators, you hear about companies like Techstars, ERA, and other banks that have created incubators. That concept really was not necessarily invented, but really enhanced and legitimized by Y Combinator. Started in 2005 by a gentleman named Paul Graham. It started actually in Boston, and he was so frustrated with Boston VCs that he took it and left the East Coast and shifted to Silicon Valley in Mountain View in 2005. Their model was very simple. We bring you on as a company for 12 weeks. We coach you, we train you, we guide you, and then we present you in front of investors, and then you raise money. But once you're in for life. You're part of this really tightly knit alumni network, and they focus a lot on training and developing. And that sounds very kind of generic, but I think where they differ is that all of their partners, at least at the time, were ex-entrepreneurs.
Mm-hmm.
And I think entrepreneurship, unlike other fields like, I don't know, accounting or law that have pretty clear tracks and there's books on it,
mm-hmm.
Where you know what you got to do to be a CPA or a lawyer or a doctor. There isn't that level of concreteness to entrepreneurship.
Mm-hmm.
And they provide structure to an otherwise unstructured process, which is entrepreneurship. Because they've all done it before. They've all sold companies before. So they can speak the language. They can guide you through the process.
Mm-hmm.
Like running a marathon with somebody that's ran 30 marathons.
Right.
They can guide you along the way. And that was really refreshing because quite honestly, I didn't know what I was doing up until I got there. And I think most people feel that way, but it's really hard to admit that to yourself when you're an MBA, right?
Right.
They understand that and they really coach you and guide you through the process. and give you a lot of tips that are essential. The organization has been super successful. They've launched, I think, about a dozen billion-dollar companies, including Airbnb, Stripe, Dropbox, and several other more. Hopefully Arcus will be on that list very soon too.
Yeah.
And yeah, they are arguably the most successful venture capitalists, in my opinion, in history.
So that's interesting because in talking to so many people on this show, I've heard a number of times that there's no clear-cut path to becoming a successful entrepreneur. And there's no career path for becoming a venture capitalist either. So when you get people from both camps or working on the same project even or the same firm, I gotta believe that you end up with a bunch of people who are equal parts innovative and just plain persistent. So listen, we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, I'm going to ask Edrizio for his take on that. We'll be right back. Alumni Ventures Group uses the power of alumni connections to provide the smartest, simplest way to add venture to your portfolio. To learn how AVG makes venture investing easy for accredited investors, visit avgfunds.com. That's avgfunds.com. Whether you're ready to add VC to your portfolio or just want to learn more about venture investing, check us out. Now back to the show. And we're back with Edrizio de la Cruz from Arcus. This is a fintech company that helps major banks stay top of wallet. We left off with Edrizio explaining that being accepted at Y Combinator was a lifeline for him as he got the chance to work with experienced venture capitalists who truly understood the plight of the entrepreneur.
I think we're all products of our environment, right? So I think you need to feed off of that energy. And entrepreneurship is inherently a lonely road.
Mm-hmm.
So when you have that ecosystem of people that are like-minded, like capable, and you have a support system helping guide you, that's really, really important for any entrepreneur.
So Chestnut Street Ventures, this is the alumni fund for UPenn investors and entrepreneurs. They invested in your Series A round, I understand. So how has your role as CEO changed since becoming a venture-backed company?
That's a great question. I think it changed a lot this year. I think this year was the first significant change. And Y Combinator actually wrote a piece about this, when your role shifts, what they call the second stage of being a CEO.
Mm-hmm.
The first stage is product building. The second stage is company building. So what I mean by product building is you're really just trying to find a product market fit. You're trying to find what it is that you're going to build that people are going to want. And until you find that, it is the responsibility of the CEO and the executives, the co-founders, to really go out there, constantly sell, learn, and iterate constantly until you get enough traction in the market that you are able to get to the next level, which is the company building.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we are today. The company building part is, I think they define it as after you have 50 employees, which is what we have today. You have enough traction where you're not trying to find product market fit, but you're trying to scale the product market fit.
Mm-hmm.
And that changes a lot because you become less of a doer and more of a thinker and a manager. So it's a whole new skill set that you have to develop. And then you have things like culture and motivation and strategic thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden you are not doing all the things that you had to do, which is scary a little bit because you are entrusting others with those tasks. And you feel it's like giving someone your baby, almost like here, hold them and walk them. And I trust you to do that just as well as I did the past 4 years. But that's how you scale, right? That's the only way to scale.
Yeah.
And so that transition, I think, is very interesting and key. And so we're kind of at the tail end of that as we're getting ready for our next round next year. So that's been really fun.
So you've had many great mentors. Is there any particular advice you've received that you think made a big difference?
Don't hire for a role you haven't tried yourself. So if you're going to hire for sales, at least try doing sales. You know what it entails. So you're going to hire for customer success. Try doing customer success so you know what it entails.
Uh-huh.
And we've applied that a lot, especially this year because we were like 21 people at the beginning of the year and we're 47 now.
Wow.
So it's always good to walk the shoes of the role that you are